Welcome to my latest 2023 NFL preview video. Today I am breaking down the Jacksonville Jaguars, and here's how my preview videos work. I start off with 3 things I like about the Jacksonville Jaguars, followed by 3 things I don't like. Then I go over to yearly win total odds, break down the schedule, and at the very end I give my betting recommendation. Let's start off with 3 things I like about the Jacksonville Jaguars. The first thing I like about the Jacksonville Jaguars is quarterback Trevor Lawrence. He is my MVP candidate for 2023. Currently, DraftKings has him as 15-1 odds to win MVP, Barstool 16-1, and Caesars 18-1 as I am making this video. If you want to put some action down on a long shot, this would be mine. The second thing I like about the Jacksonville Jaguars goes hand in hand with Lawrence winning MVP, and that is I love Lawrence's weapons. Jacksonville finally figured out how to use Evan Ingram. He had career highs in receptions and yards. This was one of my major draft crushes I always believed just wasn't used properly. It appears so far Jacksonville has figured it out. Zay Jones also had career highs in receptions and yards, and while I thought they overpaid Christian Kirk, he again had career highs in receptions and yards, but unlike the other two, had career highs in receiving touchdowns as well. Now add in who might be the best of the bunch and reinstated Calvin Ridley. The former first-round draft pick was acquired in a trade but did not play last year due to a gambling suspension. Now back, Ridley joins an ascending receiving unit and just needs to be part of the machine. I didn't even mention Travis Etienne yet. He went for over 1,000 yards rushing last year and averaged 5.1 yards a carry. Add in rookie third-round pick Tank Bigsby, who's been very impressive in training camp and preseason so far. This unit is just getting better and will be one of the best skill possession units in all of football. The final thing I like about the Jags is their front 7 speed. Forse Alakun, and I apologize, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, has led the NFL in tackles the last 2 years. 2021 in Atlanta and last year in Jacksonville. Team him with last year's first-round pick Devin Lloyd, and you have 2 fast 3-down linebackers. Jacksonville also added third-round pick Chad Muma, who, even though he's not a starter, added 47 tackles and 1.5 sacks. Josh Allen led the team in sacks and is someone I thought would blow up last year. He's very talented but hasn't lived up to his potential as of yet. Speaking of potential, none is higher than former number 1 overall pick Trayvon Walker. The 270-pound edge rusher who lit up the combine running a 4.5 140 just needs to figure out how to use that crazy athleticism. I'm not saying this is an elite front 7, but it's one of the fastest and youngest units in the NFL. Defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell just has to unleash the talent, something I'm bringing up again very soon. To recap the 3 things I like about the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, my 2023 MVP prediction, Trevor Lawrence's weapons, and the front 7 speed. Before I go over the 3 things I don't like, make sure you smash that like button. And if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. It helps me out tremendously when you subscribe to the channel. Now, 3 things about the Jaguars I don't like. The first thing I don't like is only 35 sacks last year. How does Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker combine for only 10.5 sacks? This front 7 is fast and athletic, but didn't get after the quarterback very well last year. They did add players via free agency in the draft, but this duo needs to double their sack output if Jacksonville wants to advance past the divisional round in the playoffs. This goes hand in hand with the second thing I don't like, and that is Jacksonville was 28th in passing yards allowed last year. Let me be clear, this pass defense got much improved as the season went on. During the 5-game win streak to end the season, no team threw for over 243 yards against the Jaguars. A little fun fact here that every team that threw for over 300 yards against this defense won. Usually a team that's playing from behind will pass the ball more often, so usually a team with a lot of passing yards against you, that doesn't usually result in a 0-4 record. If you look at the AFC, you have Mahomes, Herbert, Allen, Burrow, and now Rodgers. Now this secondary is very young and extremely talented, but they must continue to improve if Jacksonville is going to advance further in the playoffs. The final thing I don't like about Jacksonville is starting left tackle Cam Robinson will miss the first 6 games of the season. I will go into more detail about this when I break down the schedule, but the timing is terrible. Their first home game is a rematch versus Kansas City. Yes, the same Chiefs that won the Super Bowl, and they play week 5 against Buffalo in London. Losses against these 2 opponents will hurt in attempts to get home field advantage in the AFC playoffs. This suspension also could affect the way that Jacksonville drafted. They used their first round pick on offensive tackle Anton Harrison. I'm not saying Harrison's a bad pick, but the suspension of Robinson did result in Jacksonville having to use draft capital on the offensive line. To recap the three things I didn't like about Jacksonville: only 35 sacks last year. They were 28th in passing yards allowed, and the Cam Robinson suspension. Now let's go over to yearly win total odds. Caesars has 10 wins, Barstool has 10.5, and DraftKings has -140 for over 9.5 and plus 135 for over 10.5. If you don't understand these numbers, you can check out my yearly win total odds tutorial video listed here. Now let's go over to Jags schedule. As I mentioned before, their first home game is Kansas City week 2. Week 1 they travel to Indianapolis, and week 3 they host Houston. These are two very winnable games. Weeks 4 and 5 are in London, and they come back home to face Indianapolis week 6. This is very advantageous playing Indianapolis because they are going to start a rookie quarterback, so playing Indianapolis twice the first 6 weeks of the season is a nice advantage. Weeks 7 and 8 are tough road games before a week 9 bye. The 2 consecutive weeks in London make it Jacksonville a nice advantage versus Buffalo, and even if you lose at either New Orleans or Pittsburgh, I think Jacksonville will finish the toughest part of their schedule at least 4-4. After the bye week, the 3 toughest remaining games, Cincinnati, Baltimore, and San Francisco, are all at home. Week 9, both Jacksonville and San Francisco have byes, but a West Coast team traveling east for an early game is always a nice advantage. Even if Jacksonville goes 1-2 in those 3 home games after the bye, I really don't see more than 3 losses after week 9. This means worst case scenario, I see Jacksonville finishing the season 10-7 and best case 13, maybe even 14 wins. It's no question to me Jacksonville wins the AFC South, and I recommend you take the over even if you're taking over 10.5 wins. You could check out all 32 teams broken down on this playlist, and Monday I preview the New York Giants. I hope to see you then.